It's so important as you're thinking about the mission of your business and who it is that you're actually serving and what mission that you're actually chasing. That owner and the two kids would have lost out on this house to foreclosure. And so if you're struggling with thinking about follow up and you don't feel like following up or you don't have a good system, do it for your customer, right? Because you know that if you're not constantly following up, then your customers could have things happen to them that shouldn't happen to them if you follow up with them. And so don't just follow up so that you can make more money, so that you can earn more revenue. Follow up because that is the right thing to do to best serve your customers. Welcome to the Ryan Rice Show, where we talk about what we learned yesterday that we can apply today so that we can be better tomorrow. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Follow up will absolutely make you more money. And this is top of mind right now because I got 2 deals in contract this past week. And the whole reason I got them in contract is because of very diligent follow up. So I want to tell those 2 stories. I'll tell you exactly what I did that was able to land these 2 deals. And I'm going to give you, in the end, 2 tactical tips that you can use in your real estate business to help ensure that you're not going to miss any potential leads that are sitting in your CRM and therefore going to lose out on some potential revenue. Who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I am a full-time real estate investor. I've been doing this for going on 4 years now, and I make these so that they can make you more money in your real estate business. So the first deal I got in contract this week, they dropped in my CRM weeks and weeks ago. And initially, it was the fiance of the homeowner who reached out, and she said, "Hey, my fiance's got this house, and he's going to lose it. It's going into foreclosure, but his son is on the house, and we're not really sure what he's doing, but he doesn't want to sell." And there was some conflict between the dad and the son, and a daughter was actually also on title, and they were struggling to get everyone on the same page. And so I got on the phone with the dad and we talked, and he told me what was going on, and he was ready to sell, right? He was ready to make sure that this foreclosure wasn't going to go through, and was asking a lot of questions just on what to do. But what they did was they gave me the phone number of the son to try and reach out because the son wasn't being responsive to the father. And I reached out to him and just wouldn't get a response: text, phone call, email. And so for at least a few weeks there was a period of time where I just reported back to the father, like, "Hey, I can't get in touch with your son. We're not going to be able to do anything. We're not going to be able to sell this house unless your son agrees to sell it. And so it's really important that we get on the same page." A couple weeks passed, right? And I reached out and I got a hold of the daughter. And that ended up being a very fruitful conversation because the daughter and the son were talking. And those two were a little bit at odds with dad. And after a few weeks and had passed and I got in touch with the daughter used her influence to get a hold of the son to ensure that he could have a conversation with me so that we could figure out what needs to happen, or at least I could gain some clarity and their dad could gain some clarity on what they wanted to do so that they wouldn't lose this house. And there was this period in between where they stopped following up, right? I couldn't get in touch with the son. Weeks went by, and it very easily could have just fallen out had I not used the system that I'm going to tell you guys about here in a second to ensure that I'm constantly reaching out. It seems likely that this deal would have fell through the cracks. Their house would have probably been foreclosed on, and I wouldn't have been able to put it in contract. So there was this 2, 3, maybe even 4 week period where we didn't really know which direction we were going because the son wasn't communicating. And at that point, the fiance and the dad stopped reaching out to me because they were frustrated and they didn't know what to do either. But I just kept at it, right? I kept trying to communicate with the son. Finally, I got in touch with the daughter, and I was able to get in touch with the son. and we were to put things in motion and finally bring everything together in order to put that house in contract. And the projected profit on that deal is going to be more than twice the size of my average deal size. It's going to be a good deal for us. And it took some deliberation for us to get it under contract. But the point is that if I wasn't constantly following up on that deal, it very easily would have slipped through the cracks. We would have lost out on a great house. And almost more importantly is the owner would have gotten foreclosed on. And so it's so important as you're thinking about the mission of your business and who it is that you're actually serving and what mission that you're actually chasing, that owner and the two kids would have lost out on this house to foreclosure. And so if you're struggling with thinking about follow up and you don't feel like following up or you don't have a good system, do it for your customer, right? Because you know that if you're not constantly following up, then your customers could have things happen to them that shouldn't happen to them if you follow up with them. And so don't just follow up so that you can make more money, so that you can earn more revenue. Follow up because that is the right thing to do to best serve your customers, because it's true. If you don't have this consistent follow-up routine, then there are going to be opportunities where your customers are not going to be served because you don't feel like putting in motion a plan or a system to follow up. And so it's so important that you do that. The second deal, this was a cold call lead for me. And we got the cold call lead, and it took at least a week or two to get the cold call lead on the phone. I mean, we really struggled to get a hold of him. And my follow-up specialist finally got a hold of him. He was our typical seller avatar who will opt to sell a house cash, and he was going through some problems that we could solve. And so he was a good potential client. So we scheduled his process call for me to go through and do my part of the sales process, and he didn't answer. So we finally, we followed up. I finally got him on the phone. I did that part of the sales process, and we do a 2-call close, right? And so we wrapped up that part of the sales process. We scheduled the offer call, and I go to call him for the offer call, and he didn't answer. And then over the next week or two, he pretty much ghosted us. I called him every day, sometimes multiple times per day. Real quick, if you feel this is helpful, share this on your Instagram, tag me, write follow-up equals money, and let's share this with as many real estate investors as possible so that we can make them more and more money in their businesses. Let's get back to the show. And what I did is, after a certain amount of time where he just stopped answering the phone, I put the lead back into my follow-up specialist rotation of leads that my follow-up specialist was calling every single day. And finally, we got him back on the phone. He just had so much going on in his personal life that he was unable to think about what needed to happen about this house. And when I finally got him back on the phone, what he disclosed to me, he said, "Yeah, Ryan, we have been going through a lot these past 12 months or so. My 16-year-old daughter was hit by a school bus about 13 months ago. And it's been a lot to go through and get her back on a road to recovery. And that's been consuming a lot of my time between work, and she doesn't live close to me. So I'm constantly traveling back and forth. And honestly, this house was the last thing on my mind." Now, this was a house that the seller was probably 150 miles from, and it was more of a burden on him than anything. And he really wanted to sell it, but because he had all of these other things that are going on in his life, he simply didn't make it a priority. So what another good example of follow-up, right? Had we not consistently and constantly followed up with this lead, there would be a good opportunity that we're going to miss out on this potential deal. And due to that, we're not going to help him in a time that he's in most need, right? The last thing he wants on his plate is to deal with his house. And because we consistently followed up, we're going to be able to take it off his place. We're going to be able to take it off his plate in a manner that's going to be super conducive to him. He doesn't have time to try and list it, try and stage it, try and hire people to fix it up. He just wants to let it go in a very convenient, easy process. And it was at least a month, if not a little bit more, from the time that we first made contact to the time that I was actually able to give him an offer, and he was able to accept that offer. So, and that deal, by the way, is also going to be a deal that is going to be more than twice of my average profit per deal. And so these are two really big and solid deals for us, great houses in great parts of town that we would have missed out on if we didn't have a good follow-up system. So I want to tell you the two key pieces of follow-up, or the two key systems that we use in our business to make sure that these deals aren't slipping through the cracks. And honestly, the whole way that we came up with these is because I was having leads slip through the cracks. And so we had to develop this system. So that this system that I'm sharing with you is lots of trial and error, because stuff would fall through the cracks, and we would put in motion these different things to try and prevent that from happening again. So the first thing, if you're a lone wolf, meaning you're the only one that's talking to sellers and you don't have a sales team, then what I found that works really well for me is to have a hot list, right? What I mean by a hot list is I do this on my notes app in my phone, and it syncs to my laptop. And if there is a lead who is very motivated, or there's a high level of pain, or it seems like an avatar that we can help, I put them on my hot list, and every single day on my calendar, I'll put a calendar block to talk to my hot list, right? And that reminds me every single day that that is the list that I need to make sure that I'm calling, so that we're not missing out on these really, really good potential leads. So that's the first thing. If you're by yourself, just something so simple. Have a hot list, put it somewhere that's visible, whether it's on a sticky note, whether it's on your phone. Put it somewhere that is going to remind you that, hey, these are the hot leads that I need to constantly make sure that I'm following up on. And for me, if it's not on my calendar, I don't execute on it. And so if you're anything like me, try blocking your calendar for, hey, this hour, I'm going to follow up on these leads. And that way it pops up every single day. It reminds you, you don't have to remember to take action on those leads. The second framework, or the second system that we use for follow-up. Now, I have a follow-up specialist that works for me full time, right? He serves as a lead manager and also a setter. And the system that we use for him is we make sure that there's no lead in our CRM that passes, 2 to 4 weeks without being touched, maximum 30 days. And so the CRM that we use is Resimpli. There's a lot of really good CRMs out there. This one, quick plug for Resimpli, has been a very simple tool. It's not as customizable as some other tools like Podio, Salesforce, like the big dogs use, but it's very simple, and it is a CRM that can serve the need that we have, and that can function just fine for your follow-up system. So what my follow-up specialist does is he has an SOP that he follows every single day. He has an on-the-call SOP, and then he has an off-the-call SOP, right? When he's making sales calls, this is the SOP that he follows. And we have, a certain bucket of leads that he'll call all those, then he'll call all those, then he'll call all those. And he does that every single day. And then he has an off-the-call. So when he's not in his routine call, he has a lead management system where we'll say, okay, these are the leads that need to be followed up in the future when that time comes. If today is the day that needs followed up, I'll move it back into my bucket of leads that we're calling every single day, and he will just simply reach out to those leads. And so if you have a lead manager or a sales system, or a sales team rather, it's important, I found, to have an on-the-call SOP, which is what are they doing when they're talking to clients, and what is their process and system for making calls and making them in volume quickly. And then what is their off-the-call? Like, what are those little lead management things that need to be done to make sure that they're going to hit the leads and not let these leads slip through the cracks? And one thing that I found super beneficial in having a follow-up specialist is if I am too busy doing owner tasks or closer tasks, and just like this lead that we closed this past week, I reached out to him for probably like a week and I couldn't get in touch with him. And at that point, I decided, okay, it's a good lead, but my time is probably better spent on these seller appointments and these other things because he isn't answering. And I threw it back into the daily call list of my follow-up specialist. And I knew he was going to call him every single day anyway. And so after a few days, he got in touch with him. We synced back together. We got back on the phone and we were able to close that deal. So those are the two tactical pieces and two systems that we use for follow-up to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. And again, those were learned after leads did slip through the cracks. And so they were learned the hard way. So hopefully those systems and those processes can help you not make sure that you're not going to lose any of those leads, any of those potential deals because of that. So I hope that was helpful. Follow-up will absolutely make you more money. And these are the two systems and ways that I have found that have made that follow-up more successful.